What's up, fish heads? Tony Baber here. We're going to talk about that late summer, early fall transition when these fish first start to pull back into these backwaters. What to look for, kind of what triggers them to start moving, what kind of baits you want to be throwing as far as to try and search and locate these fish, and what to expect. So we're going to kind of dive into it, a little bit more of a detailed view of it. I got some good fish catches for you, got a little bit of voiceover going on from first person. Make sure, as always, you guys subscribe, you ring that notification bell so that you can stay in touch with all the video uploads. And without further ado, let's get to it. So just to put this into context for you guys, this is that late August, early September time of year when those fish may or may not be starting to move back into these creeks. It all depends on kind of how the weather's moving and things like that. What I found this year is that they seem to be starting to push back a lot earlier than I anticipated. So I thought it was a really interesting experience and I wanted to kind of share it with you. I got some good recording and good voiceover as well as some good instruction and tips and things like that. So let's listen in and hopefully you guys can pick up some good information from this.
As soon as that thing hit the water, he ate it. Not real big, but hey. Well, he jumped off on his own. Hey, buddy. Relax. They are active back here right now. Oh, he got off. Couldn't catch up to him. So this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for in the fall transition. I think the most important thing is to be ready to move early, because these fish are ready to move. I mean, we're in barely the second week of September, and I've already caught almost a dozen out of this little area here in the past week. And it's getting more and more active by the day, apparently. I mean, you can just see all the bait balls out there. I mean, I've already caught one and lost one. Granted, they're not real big, but I promise you the big ones are in here. Just a matter of putting the bait in front of one. I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce jackhammer chatterbait right now. And to be honest, I'm not even sure what the color is. I believe it's like clear shad or crystal shad or something like that. But I mean, I'm cranking along here, I can just feel it bumping into shad. I mean, there's some good sized shad up here. You've always got to be on the lookout for busting shad too. If you see one getting busted on, make sure you're casting in there. Hopefully as soon as you can. Sometimes this time of year you can sit back here when they get real active and just wait for them to bust on something or see some shad moving, then just cast in on it real quick and you can nab them. Sometimes that's the better strategy depending on how active they are. I'm just gonna kind of keep casting around and following this bait here. right through this zone here seems to be the key area for me the last weekend, I should say. Caught them on everything from a spinnerbait to square bill to even a drop shot back in here. Anything mimicking a shad, basically. It's just important to stay on top of them, you know. Find out where they're at, where they're moving. You know, I wasn't sure if they'd push back out a little bit. The water's dropped a few inches. Also, with the steadier warm weather that we've been having, it's been in the upper 80s here the last 3 days. Clear skies for the most part, a lot of sun. I didn't know if that would push them fish out or not.
So I want to jump in here and give you something that I've kind of thought or figured out. So I think there's two major things that really occur here that really push these fish to the backs of these creeks or start pushing them back. The time of day, shrinking down below 13 hours, 12 and a half hours a day, and also the fact that we had about 3 nights of cooler weather below 60 degrees. Really brought that water temperature down probably 6 to 8 degrees at the surface. And I think the combination of those two events is what really started to push these fish back because I was having a hard time finding them. And then we had this little bit of a cold front blow through before this weekend that I'm shooting this video, and it really seemed to push them back. And we were able to kind of locate them about 3/4 of the way back in the backs of these creeks. So, something to think about when you're looking for these fish and kind of what triggers them. Look at the time of day and also look at your temperatures and kind of what's been going on with the water temperatures and the overall overnight temperatures. So let's get back into it and listen in.
I'm going to switch it up and go back to the spinnerbait I was using the other day. See if we can get them fired up on old coleslaw. This is a Nichols spinnerbait. 1/2 ounce double willow coleslaw color. Love throwing this color in dirtier water. It's a good color for this lake too, I've noticed. I actually picked it up from a pro a few years ago during a FLW tour tournament here. He was throwing this color and different brand, but kind of turned me on to it. Water was even clearer than this. Just had one hit it. Like I said, it's always important to be aware of your surroundings. While I was sitting here kind of casting that first cast out with the spinnerbait, I was running trolling motor. I got it on real low setting right now. Just this shallow water, trying to keep a little bit stealthier and quiet with it. And there was a big ball of shad, and they were big shad too, come swimming up from behind me and out in front of me here. And shortly after that's when I got that bite there. But the important thing I was trying to say is, you know, paying attention to your surroundings and seeing that shad ball and seeing the size of the shad. I mean, they were easily 2.5 to 3 inch, if not 4 inch shad. Good healthy size shad, which is what you want back here. The bigger shad back here, the better likelihood of a good bass being back here, because if they're back here, the bass are going to start moving back here to eat on those, the bigger ones. Because they know where to find the good meals at. Alright, I'm going to turn around and head back through that area there. That trailer is a Green Gizzard Swimming Shiner by Strike King. Love using that on spinnerbaits and chatterbaits and stuff as a trailer. If you want something with a little more bulk, a little more kick, a little more action. It's a nice soft bait. Paddle kind of kicks real easy. It doesn't take much at all as far as speed or anything as far as imparting action on it. But they're pretty soft, but they're durable too. Like the Green Gizzard, they make a color called key lime, which is a favorite of mine for like a white and chartreuse kind of bait, because it's got that split on it, the color split. But it works real good. I like it. And it pairs up real well with a white and chartreuse. I even thought about putting it on this spinnerbait, but I thought it might be a little bit too much. So I kind of went back with more of the color of what I've been seeing as far as the shad. You can tell they're those green gizzards because they got that green sheen to them when you can see them in the water. I always want to match the hatch, as everyone says. Of course, you might say, how does coleslaw match the hatch? Visibility. This gives them something visual to key in on and strike, and shows up good in this dingy water. It's not something you'd want to throw in the clearer parts of this lake, that's for sure. It's a little loud for that.
So shortly after I was recording, or I stopped recording, I was able to catch a few more good fish. There's some pictures of them. I went back to that chatterbait, which really seemed to be the key thing that they were going after. It had a lot of good bulk to it. You see a good fish busting right there. Threw a square bill on it, wasn't able to catch him. But some of the things you want to look for when you're getting into the backs of these creeks is look for those turns and those curves and kind of that different contour as far as like the edges and things like that. Don't just look down the straight side of them. Really try to key in on anywhere where you get those creek channel turns or swings, and look for both the shallow and the deep side. Sometimes they might be out in that deeper water, but when they're chasing that bait, when they're more active, they tend to be on that shallow side. So really key in on that. Another good bait to use and an excellent way to really cover a lot of water and search is a square bill. That 1.5, 2.5 size and that natural shad color is something that I have a ton of confidence in on this lake and a few other lakes for that matter too. I've just caught a bunch of fish on that natural shad color by Strike King. The 2.5 square bill seemed to be the better deal when we were out there fishing because they were definitely keying in on that bigger bait. So kind of going back to the bait conversation, you really want to look for not just bait, because there was a lot of bait back in these creeks, but most of it was small. Now where we really started to key in and get some good bites and catch some of the good fish is when we were able to find those schools of the bigger bait. So when you find those big baits like the 2.5 to 3.5 inch shad, or depending on what lake you're on, when you find those schools sitting in there in the backs of these creeks, that's when you're going to start finding the better quality fish, because when they start pushing back, those bigger bass are going to start pushing back. So really something to kind of look out for. And they don't tend to be as easily to spot because they sit under the water a little bit more, I noticed, especially this time of year. You'll see a lot of the little ones flipping around, but you don't always see the bigger ones flipping, making it obvious that they're back there. So really keep an eye out on your surroundings and things like that. There's a little bonus flipping fish for you, a little smallmouth I caught in the back of one of the creeks. So hopefully this gives you some ideas of things to look out for. Like I said a couple different times, kind of one of the key elements of all this, pay attention to your surroundings. Look at what's going on. Look at the size of the bait. Look at how much bait and where that bait is at. Keep an eye on them transition zones between the creeks and the flats, the creek channels and the flats, and really just stay aggressive and don't give up and lose hope, because it can be difficult this time of year. But if you stay at it and you work at it hard enough and keep eliminating water, eventually you'll figure out where those fish are at. So good luck and good fishing, and as always, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on all my social media, and make sure that you've subscribed and hit that notification bell here on YouTube.